Sometimes I forget. Sometimes I forget that I'm getting on up in years. And so sometimes I undertake tasks that years ago would have been nothing, or at least easy, and try to do them now, and reality comes crashing down on me. The other thing is I have so much to remember. Let me explain myself. I've been blessed in that I've had a very interesting and full life. It would take a long time just to list the things that I've been blessed in having the opportunity to do. In the background photo right now, that is our clothes washing system. In 1977, at that time we were living and working in Mexico. And back then, a whole different country than it is now. You were lucky to have running water and electricity at all. And if it was a smaller town, then almost no chance. So anyway, when we did clothes, we had to do them the way my folks did, and grandparents and great-great-grandparents had to do way back. So while it was no fun, it was very interesting. And during that time, from 77 to 79, we saw and did things that we'd never done before, and a lot of it we haven't done since. That's a picture of me back when I was young, overlooking the town of Ojinaga in Mexico. That's where we finally settled in. But in addition to that, we had to go down to the interior of the country, down in the area of Copper Canyon, and anyway, amongst the Tarahumara Indians, we provided a clinic, a week-long clinic once a month to people who had no health care whatsoever. And that was a tremendous experience. But before even that started, when I was really young and very foolish, I was blessed in that I was brought up in a retail business. So I worked there from high school forward for many years, and worked under the tutelage of my father, who was a gifted man who was very patient with me and others, who taught me business. By the time I was 13, I was doing the bookkeeping and payrolls for the company. I think I was 14 when my folks went on a buying trip to New York City, and so for 2 weeks, I ran the business, including making payrolls, and opening, closing, and checking out the register, and placing orders, whatever it takes to run a retail business. Also during that time, let's see, I was racing cars, a drag strip, racing motorcycles, mostly motocross, mostly enduro, but some motocross, and learning to fly. So by the time I graduated from high school, I'd already lived a life that a lot of people just dream of. So, but being young and foolish, I let things, women in particular, detract me from my studies at college. And so my grade point average dropped below 1.5, which meant I was now suddenly eligible for the draft. Remember, this was during Vietnam. So I didn't want to end up there for wide range of reasons. But my options were getting slim. A number was about to come up. So I checked into the other branches of service, and the Air Force had a program going at that time where if you qualified for one of their tech schools, you were guaranteed placement into that tech school. So I passed the electronics exam, and that was my course in the Air Force. I was assigned to communications. Other than school, that'd be basic training or tech school, my only other duty assignment was in the Middle East. So here's the irony of it. I had joined the Air Force to try to avoid the mess in Vietnam. As it turned out, I was taken prisoner by hostile forces in Turkey in 1969. So that was, no way do I want to compare that to the long-term prisoners in Vietnam. That was, I can't even imagine that, and having tasted just 32 days of that kind of thing, that was plenty. There were 60 of us in the unit, and we had one killed and another beaten so badly and so maimed, I don't know what became of him. But because that was a top secret operation in conjunction with the NSA and CIA, about the only thing true on my DD-214 discharge papers is my name. If it weren't for pictures I took, you would never tell what I did in the Air Force. But the good thing about that is, after that held prisoner, people were given an option of an early out if they chose to. So those of us who were still early into our service, like me, I got out after 17 months of a 4-year enlistment. And yet all of the benefits accrued to me. So I was very lucky in that regard. But I saw some things in Turkey that during that coup that left a lifelong impression. I haven't before nor since seen violence I saw there. And a lot of not violence from a distance, but violence up close. Inhumane things. I saw a Turkish soldier who was taken, and while still alive, he was dismembered. And I was about 100 yards or less, 50 yards away from that, thinking I was going to be next. So to say that left an impression would be an understatement. So anyway, I don't want to digress into trying to do a lifelong history. Just want to hit some of the things that I often forget. And to put that in context, I mean, things have really turned out well for me. After getting back from the Middle East, I met a lady on New Year's Eve, 1969. I was married to her in March and was married to her 49 years. We have 3 children. I have 3 grandchildren. So how great is that? On the other hand, my wife passed away from complications of Alzheimer's. It was a very long illness and a period of time I would like to forget. The problem with Alzheimer's, you see people disappear right before your eyes. In fact, myself and my oldest son, toward the end, were the only 2 people that my wife could recognize. But anyway, not to bear on that thing. But when I got out of the Air Force, I was very fortunate that in the Air Force, we were converting from analog to digital. So I got on the very ground floor of computers. I sold my first computer application in 1979. By 82, I was into it full time and making some good strides there. At a time when we had to invent everything. Before my career was over, we really had worked ourselves out of a job. But it was a good income, and other than having to travel more than I wanted to, it was great. And I enjoyed it so much, it really wasn't work. I always was surprised why they paid me, but anyway, so the pilot training I took, I've never used that. As far as combat goes in the Air Force, my total combat training was I fired 10 rounds in an AR-15. That was it. They never expected us to have to get into combat, particularly in my career field, which was all top secret stuff. And not that it's heroic necessarily, but the technology surrounding the state-of-the-art encryption and cryptology that was in use at the time meant they would guard me and my fellow workers to the nth degree, except for that 32 days when we were held hostage. I won't get into that, other than to say that experience, I was right at ground zero when that coup broke out. And so seeing the events of January 6th of last year was extremely disturbing to me, because those scenes from the Capitol building, that was so much like what I saw in Turkey during that coup. You know, we have a tendency to look at stuff on TV and treat it almost as entertainment. But trust me, being at ground zero in any kind of violent event is not entertainment. And for the ones who lose their lives or are badly injured, that's certainly the case. So anyway, I'm not going to get much into that. There was a lot of stuff during my career in creating and selling computer systems that was very interesting. For my age, I really went to a great height before the crash of '87. Humbled me completely. But anyway, I tend to forget how great life has been. And the fact that my current challenge is just to live with the reality of getting older. Other than diabetes, I'm in relatively good shape. My diabetes has caused, I have what's called neuropathy, which causes intense foot and leg pain at times. And I have to take medication for that, which can remove the pain, but also just about removes everything else. I try to avoid that as much as possible, but the side effects of that is far less than the pain that I'm relieving myself of. In one of the videos, I spoke about a new development for me. Having grown up in the 60s and the hippie days and everything, I had never tried marijuana. Well, my neuropathy was getting so bad that the prescribed medication, when I maxed out on it, which meant I could hardly walk, was still not getting the job done on the pain. So it was looking like my only alternative was to go to opioid, which I did not want to get into that slavery. So about that time, Florida passed the medical marijuana bill. So I thought, well, hey, I'll give that a try, because I'd seen testimonials of people who said it was great for pain relief. And so that was my objective. So I signed up for that. The downside of that, in Florida, it cost you $170 just to find out if it's going to do any good, because you have to have a doctor's appointment to certify you as needing it. And then the state of Florida charges $75 to put you on the medical marijuana roll call or whatever it is. So, but the good news is it's miraculous. I'm not taking the medicine prescribed for me at all with THC and CBD, the things that are derived from the cannabis plant. I'm able to get rid of the pain altogether and still be functional. If I'm taking that while I'm making these videos, it can result in a little bit of a slow-mo. It takes a little longer for mine to work, and I'm an old Southern boy, so I have a Southern accent anyway. So you add enough cannabis to that, and I can be difficult to understand sometimes. But anyway, what prompted this is I've had several comments asking me some personal things, not deeply personal, but showing some interest in knowing who I am and why I make the videos and whatnot. So this is my first attempt at doing that. If it's well received, be sure to hit like if you like it, and subscribe, of course. I may do more of these, and I'll get into more detail because I have here I'm in a retirement community now, 55 plus retirement community. There's 1,605 residencies here, housing units, and I enjoy meeting with folks who lived an entirely different life than me. I met a man who worked his entire career as a machinist, running two things his whole 30-something years, a lathe and a milling machine. And he really seemed to enjoy that immensely. I would go nuts with something so redundant, but he cranked out a lot of product, and he enjoyed it. So anyway, I meet a lot of different people here who have different life experiences. So if I forget at times my own, that's a good wake-up call. Okay, I'm going to cut it off for now. I am going to change the background to one other picture from down in Mexico. This was the neighborhood I lived in Mexico. It's in just about the middle of the Great Chihuahuan Desert. So you'd see high temperatures, sometimes 120 degrees, and at night get down into the 40s. And as you can tell from the construction, I don't need no stinking insulation. I can have cracks as big as my fist through the walls, and I'm still okay. But that was the way it was. And it was an experience that a tourist would never get. I got to see the real Mexico, and I was blessed. Okay, I'm going to knock it off. Leave something for another day. Please subscribe, hit like, and notify if you want to see new videos released. I try to release at least one a day. It'll depend.